and avoid it being back to school time. So welcome to the monthly call. As you know, we have a standing agenda. So with that, I would like to open it up to anybody on the call that would like to introduce themselves or their team members. As Danielle said, you can unmute yourself using *6 or you can use the chat box. Okay, today we're going to start out with an update from New Steps. As you all know, New Steps has a disorder screening status map, and we've asked them to go through the map with us today so we can sort of orient ourselves to where implementation is across the United States for the conditions that we discuss on this call. I can turn it over to you, New Steps team, or I can go to your website and navigate for you, either way.
Hey, Amy, can you hear me?
Yeah, hi.
Hi, this is Kashia Hell from New Steps. So as Amy mentioned, we do track states' implementation status on newsteps.org. So let me take you guys to that right now. I'm going to share, well, will I be able to share my screen?
Yeah, I'll stop sharing and then you should be able to share.
Okay. Okay, can you see the web page?
Yeah, thank you.
All right, so you just go to the resources page on New Steps. And so we have the screening status for all of the core and all of the core RUSP conditions. So starting off with SMA, as you can see, there are 11 states that are screening for SMA. And if you want to look at the actual screening method, some states have entered that information. So for example, New York City, if you click on that, you'll be able to see their first screening method and then also their first tier target information. And then if you want to look at another disorder, for example, let's say Pompe disease, you would just click on the disease category, which is lysosomal, and then click under or disorder, sorry. And as you can see, these are all of the states that are screening for Pompe, so there are 20 states screening. And then just like with SMA, if you want to know the actual screening method and target, you can just click on the state to get that information. Amy, did you want me to take you through each new disorders map?
Yeah, I think that would be great just to give folks an idea of, you know, where we're at as far as implementation.
Okay, all right. So for NPS 1, we have 19 states that are screening. And then finally for XALD, there are 17 states screening. And so if you want to
remind us, oh yeah, sorry. Will you remind us how many for SMA?
11.
Okay, thank you.
Mm-hmm. And if you want, like, I guess more of a comprehensive map, if you just scroll down, we have a map for NPS 1, Pompe, and XALD, and I guess we should update this to include SMA, but this shows you all of the states screening for those 3 conditions. And so you have the states in blue that are screening for all 3, NPS 1, Pompe, and XALD. Then you have the states in orange that are screening for NPS 1 and Pompe, And then you have the states in yellow screening for Pompe only, and then the states in purple screening for XALD only. And of course, the ones in gray are not screening for any of those conditions. And so we'll update that to include SMA in the future. And then this, if you just scroll down even further, this just shows you all of the core disorders that are universally screened by state. And then this is just like a little, I guess what would you call this, like a little checkered map that shows you the states that are screening for each core disorder. Okay, so do you have any questions?
Can you remind us what your categories, so right there below your table, you've got universally screened and then a few other categories. Will you remind us of the definition of those?
Where do you see it? Right here?
Yeah, right underneath that table is universally screened, others, yeah.
Yeah, so the ones with the black dots are universally screened, so that's offered to the entire population in that state. And then the ones with the triangle, that's offered to select populations. I'm not sure if there are too many states that are just doing select populations. I think most are screening universally. And I know there's Massachusetts that's screening through a pilot. But yeah, most states are universally screening.
Great, thank you. Does anybody have any questions?
Hi, Amy. This is Karima, also with New Steps. I just wanted to add to those definitions as well. So the likely to be detected are sometimes those conditions that you may not necessarily be screening for. They're not your target, but you pick them up when you screen for a disorder. And there are a couple of states, some of the core disorders are picked up that way. And then going back to the offer to select populations, because she is correct, it's for those states who might be doing a pilot study, or there are some few unique programs who it is universally offered, but maybe not every hospital offers a particular disorder to be screened for. So that's kind of the category that those fall under.
Mm-hmm. Gotcha.
Yeah,
Thank
so
you.
it's a little bit nuanced. Yeah, sure, you're welcome.
Thank you. Any questions for the New Steps team? Great. And the states use your tool to update, right? When they, whatever status, when their status changes.
Yes, that is correct.
Gotcha. Okay. I can take back the screen if you'd like.
Okay. All right, thank you.
Yeah, thank you. So we thought it'd be helpful, especially for us here at NBSTRN, just to sort of start keeping track. We did this with SCID over time, just how many states are screening, just so we can sort of think about where the data is coming from, or where the data could come from for longitudinal studies. So with that, I will go back to our normal agenda. So now we get an update from pilot teams with active or completed pilots. So we always start with our favorite, New York. So is anybody on the line from New York that wants to give us an update? I realize that you guys are pretty much done with your pilots that were part of the NICHD effort. I know you're beginning Duchenne either shortly or you have begun it, but if we can get an update on the other conditions as well, that would be great. So you can unmute yourself with *6, or there might not be anybody from New York on the line today.
Hey, Amy, I'm on. How are you?
Oh, great. Hi, Joe.
I didn't realize you guys had muted me. I had my own mute going, so.
Sorry.
anyway, I'm here. I can give an update. I don't have a lot of new news, although we did have some news with SMA this week that was, let me just grab that. So this week we had 2 positive SMAs, so that was kind of a lot for us. One with 2 copies of SMN2 and one with 4+ copies. So we don't have any updates on those cases. The family that with the baby with 4 copies is going to try to get a second opinion somewhere else. That's that. Then I can give you the numbers for ALD, Pompeii, and NPS1 if you want.
Sure.
Okay, so for ALD, we're up to 1.48 million samples tested. About 10% of those are repeats, so maybe subtract 140,000 from that, and you'll get there about the number of babies. But we've now had 98 referrals, some of which were non-ALD cases, but we have 37 males with mutations and 40 females with a mutation in ABCD1, I should say. And there's actually 2 samples in progress right now that we had just recently had screen positive. For Pompeii, we're at 1.28 million screens. We have 151 infants that have been referred. But the caseload that you see on there from last time, I don't have any new infantiles. There may be some later onsets, but we don't have an update on those. But no new infantile cases. For NPS1, we've been just about a year. Come October, it'll be a year. Feels like we just got started. We're at 240,000 samples tested. So we've referred 16 babies in that time frame, but we've tested by molecular. We've done DNA testing on 52, so a significant number of them were polymorphism, or the pseudo-deficiency alleles only detected in molecular testing. But of the 16 we have referred, we only have 2 possible late onsets, and they're kind of a little bit up in the air. I mean, people are being cautious. Maybe 3 possible later onsets, but no infantile or classic cases of NPS1. That's pretty much our update. Are there any questions?
Thanks, Joe. So you guys do molecular as a 2nd-tier screening. Is that, how do you do that? Is it targeted sequencing of just that gene, or what do you guys do?
Yeah, currently it's all Sanger sequencing of the gene and, into introns as well on each side of each exon. But we do plan to go to next gen with a panel eventually, but that would be, targeted for the gene to get, just a bigger set, all the genes that we would be looking for all at once.
Across different conditions?
Yeah, yep, that's right.
Gotcha. Okay. One thing we're kind of starting to keep track of is, the use of molecular sequencing by the state laboratories. So that's why I was curious. Any questions for Joe? Remember, you can unmute yourself with *6 or use the chat box. Okay. Thanks, Joe.
You're welcome, Amy.
Oh, I had a question. Hi.
Go ahead. Sorry.
Stan from California. So for Joe, how are you testing the SMN2 copy numbers?
I'm not exactly sure how we're doing it. Sorry about that not something I'm typically been involved with. I can get you an answer, Stan.
Okay. Appreciate it.
Stan, maybe
Thanks.
you can check out New Steps website. They might have your algorithm for SMA, Joe.
Yeah, I'm pretty sure somebody asked this last time. I may have answered the question. You know, somebody else was on the line and we answered the question, but I don't remember what it is.
Okay.
Okay.
Yeah, I know, that's silly. I guess I feel like there's enough people keep an eye on that. I've got my own concern. So, Stan, I don't know if I have your email. If I go through Amy, will that be okay?
Sure. Thanks.
Yep, no problem.
Great. Any other questions for Joe? Okay. So is there anybody on the line from Georgia?
Yeah, this is Angela. Can you hear me okay?
Yeah. Hi, Angela.
Hey, Amy. So I have my numbers here. As of the end of August, we have screened 83,138 specimens, to make that easy to type. 18.
Oh.
Sorry. Or I'm sorry, not 18. 83,138.
83138.
Sorry, I probably made it more difficult than I needed.
Gotcha.
So that's how many specimens we've screened. So far, we've had 9 that were actually abnormal and received follow-up, whether it was diagnostic testing or somehow resolved with a repeat screen. We still don't have any new diagnosed cases as of yet, so we're just at 2 for now that we reported previously. One was type 0 and had 1 copy of SMN2, and then the other kiddo had 3 copies of SMN2. We also have 2 cases right now that have diagnostic testing pending, so we've asked them to go get that based on their quite abnormal screen results, and we're waiting on those on the confirmatory testing. The other thing Art and I were just talking about today, we've had kind of an uptick of sort of inconclusive results. So it's multiplexed with SCID, and we're getting, we've had 15 so far, 15 inconclusive results for SCID. So we, asked them to repeat the screen on those. So far, all the ones that are have resolved as normal, which is good, but need to go look into why that all of a sudden we've got this uptick.
So Angela, how do you guys do the SMN2 testing?
So we don't do it in the lab. It's part of the confirmatory testing, and they do it by MLPA at a clinical lab.
Okay.
I think MLPA, right? That's not the the grammar. Sorry.
No, yeah, gotcha. So the clinician orders that.
Exactly, and that's the one we've got funding for that testing through the pilot contract with the NIH. So it's all sent to EGL Genetics so that we have kind of a streamlined way to get those results. So
how much longer do you guys have to go with this pilot for SMA?
Oh, that's a great question. I think I want to say March.
Okay.
But I could be lying. But that's what I want to say right now, March.
I believe you. Okay. Any questions for Angela? I know this multiplexing with SCID and the inconclusive is something that's come up a few times. And I think I heard folks talking about it at the APHL meeting. Is there anything you guys want to talk about related to that? Oh, and Jennifer Taylor asked if you're doing molecular on MPS 1 and Pompe. I guess that might have been for Joe.
Yeah, I think that was for Joe.
Oh, I'm sorry, what was the question again?
Jennifer Taylor was wondering if you guys do molecular on MPS 1 and Pompe.
Yes, we do.
Okay.
I think it reduces the referral rate a lot for MPS 1 and not so good for Pompe.
Great, thank you. Any questions, Jennifer, for that? Let's see. Okay, that was for you. Yep, that's what she said. So any questions for Angela on her report on SMA?
This is Stan Shortino again, and for the MLPA EGL, how's the turnaround time been for the test?
It's been good. They, you know, I talked to them ahead of time because we're all friends. So I asked them, and I think they're getting it to me in less than a week.
Oh, excellent. That's good to know.
Yeah,
okay.
It's been great. And you know, and on top of the whole friendship thing, if there's something that's really looking abnormal, they'll call me before they even issue the real report.
Okay, and then for
Can you hear me?
SCID,
Oh,
and then for SCID, what when you say retest it, does that mean you take another sample?
Yeah, we get a new heel stick sample.
Heel stick, and then
yeah.
Do you wait a week or two, or is it quickly?
We give them a little bit of time, you know, assuming it's not some crazy result didn't show up.
Right.
Otherwise, then yeah, we'll give them a week to get that back to us.
Okay. Thanks.
Yeah.
can you hear me? Can you hear me?
Yeah.
This is Mike Elb. I had a question for Joe. So there's some discussion about molecular for MPS 1 second tier versus GAG analysis. So I think Minnesota, Kentucky do GAG analysis and are getting pretty good results. So of the 50 some odd newborns that you sequenced for molecular for MPS 1, I mean, how many were inconclusive, and you're not sure? I mean, like variations of unknown significance, or are you planning? What is your plan for GAG analysis?
Mike, we're of the 15 that ended up, or 16 that ended up being referred, we do end up seeing a lot of variants of unknown significance, and when they go to follow-up diagnostic testing, they kind of can end up in the same boat where we get low activity, but not quite as low as people with disease, but very low, and GAGs that are generally normal in urine. So we have been sending samples for GAG analysis to Mayo, and we are going to use that data to compare to our own GAG analysis here. But at this point, to be honest, it's fairly cheap to send it to Mayo, and their turnaround is good enough for, you know, the time frame needed to do MPS 1. So we're kind of considering, you know, going through the process, trying to do the best we can to develop a GAG method, but we're not certain we'll test it here or not going forward. Depends on how it all works.
Yeah, I would just like to make a pitch for GAGs before we call the families, because like Minnesota, for example, they had, you know, of all the low enzyme.
207538370.
Sorry, can you hear me?
Press 0. To delete, press star D.
Yep, we can hear you.
I get all this noise. Okay, Minnesota, you know, they have like 4 low ends, 4 that had that had elevated GAGs. 3 of them had high GAGs and had MPS 1, were treated. 1 had borderline GAGs, asymptomatic, not treated. But so the precision, the number of false positives if you do GAGs before you contact the families is incredible. You know, essentially no false positives. And I really am concerned about calling, you know, 20, 30 families a year and then having them be scared and waiting for 2 weeks of molecular or urine tests. I really like the Mayo pitch for Kentucky and now in Minnesota, where they do GAGs on the blood spots before they call the families. I mean, you avoid scaring 50 families a year for 2 weeks. I just think it's really bad to do that. Yeah, and so I'm glad New York is comparing molecular to GAGs. I think GAGs is the way to go.
Can I interrupt? This is Hussein Askari at EGL Genetics in Georgia. We do GAGs only by thin layer chromatography, and in some newborns that have been referred for MPS 1, the GAGs have remained very normal. So perhaps when you do GAG analysis, the way you're recommending it, it's highly dependent upon which techniques they're using and are they catching it. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I mean, you should be doing it by LC mass spec, and I'm not aware of any false negatives. If you look at the published literature, anyways, I can go on forever, but we have 16 cases in the paper by Fritz Weiberg. All 16 NBS 1 patients have elevated GAGs in newborns. We're not aware of any false negatives in Minnesota. So if you do GAGs in newborn blood spots by LC mass spec, there's no evidence for any false negatives.
So with that, with this discussion, I'll just remind you guys that your algorithms for testing can be shared with New Steps. You saw that when they walked through the map before, and then your more detailed algorithm can be shared with NBSTRN, and we're consolidating those into one tool across the state. So just as you guys, listening and as you're learning and refining the methods, it's great to keep track of those algorithms, and I know it's really helpful for other states to look at what states that have implemented already are doing. So I think with MPS 1 we're at 19 states, so there's probably a lot of states that are considering their algorithm and what they should do. So everything we learned from you guys is really helpful.
I would like to say one more thing. This is Mike. Can you hear me? So GAG analysis costs about $50 to $100 per baby, compared to clinical exam and DNA, which is hundreds to thousands of dollars. So if Minnesota is doing GAG analysis on 30 samples a year, it's $1,500 on top of $200,000 to do the screening. So it's essentially no additional cost, and it's much cheaper and faster than molecular and full clinical exam. And also it doesn't scare parents. So.
Great. Thanks, Dr. Gelb. Any other questions for Angela and the team from Georgia and EGL? Okay, thanks, Angela. So I know Jennifer's on the line. So Jennifer, what's up in North Carolina?
Hey, Amy, this is Blake Harper as well. I'm on the line to give an update for North Carolina too.
Super, thank you.
We have screened at this point 4,300 babies. We have still had no positive screens. We've had one unsatisfactory result to insufficient sample quantity. Most of our efforts are still focused on our opt-in early check method, and we'll be continuing to work to increase recruitment into our opt-in consent model.
Gotcha. Thanks, Blake. Any questions for Blake from North Carolina? Okay. So it looks like, Blake, you guys are going to March 2020 as well.
That's correct. We do have a no-cost extension with an ICHG right now. As things continue, if we have the ability to continue beyond March 2020 to continue to screen, that we'll do so as well.
Okay, great.
Hi. Hello, this is Dwight Coberla-Dew. Could I ask a quick question of my state program?
Sure.
Sure. I understood from the advisory committee meeting that we are screening for X-linked ALD. So I just wondered if we could update the website that was disclosed at the start of the meeting. I don't know the process.
Hey, Dwight, this is Cindy Powell. Can you hear me?
Yeah.
North Carolina has not yet started screening for XALD. I know they're hoping to, hopefully by the end of the year, but it's not started yet. We did run that pilot last year, but the state has not formally started screening yet.
Right. So, okay, we don't want to sidetrack the meeting. So pilots were mentioned earlier, but pilots are not what's going to be listed apparently officially. Okay, thanks.
Right. That's a good point. That's a good point. We could start keeping track of, the pilots in states. Generally when we list at the beginning all of these pilot teams, they're pretty well defined with the NICHD IDIQ effort. So the pool of states is Georgia, North Carolina, Massachusetts, and then historically New York and Wisconsin have run pilots that are supported by NICHD. So that's kind of what we call our pilot states, and then we get updates from other states. But I get what you're saying about the distinction between that. Any other questions for the North Carolina team? Okay. Anybody on from Wisconsin? Okay. So we had some updates from other folks that I just included here just to remind us of some of the conversations. So we had Virginia and Nebraska, and with Nebraska we got into a big discussion of XALD and cascade testing, and then we got into a discussion of the IDIQ sort of pilot structure. So with that, I wanted just to start out and see if there were any other states that wanted to give us an update on their either piloting or their testing for these conditions that have been recently added to the RUSP. So we usually focus on Pompe, MPS1, XALD, and SMA, but you're welcome to talk about any other candidate diseases or conditions that you might be piloting.
I don't know if you can hear me. This is Debbie Friedenberg in Texas. We added XALD on August 5th, statewide full implementation. And a lot of the kids are in the midst of a workup, but we do have one child that we detected with XALD. It was a male, one hemizygous, and that was on day 2 of our screening. That sample came in.
Wow.
And we have a number of other folks who are in the midst of workups right now.
Thank you. I think, Dr. Friedberg, one of the things that came up in the past about XALD is carrier identification and cascade testing. Will you tell us a little bit about Texas' approach to XALD?
So for our XALD screening, we do the initial testing is done on the Neobase 2 along with everything else. For XALD, those that are out of range are reflex to LC MSMS negative ion mode, and that's the point at which we will call out an out of range sample. However, those that are still out of range are then reflex to DNA that is done by the state. So we kind of approach it that way. We know we'll be detecting some carriers with this, but we're not aiming to detect all carriers in the women with XALD. We have had some presentations. We had a lot of education and publicity, and we have had some families share with us that the females who were significantly affected with things you would expect as part of XALD. So if we find it, we'll report it. If we don't find it, as you know, not all carriers will be detected this way. We don't go out of our way looking for the ones we don't detect on newborn screening. So, you know, to date, we have been screening for 19 work days since August 5th, and we have had 7 referrals total, one of which we have a confirmed diagnosis, and most of the others are, since it's so new, are still in their workup phases. We do have a borderline in which we just repeat the result, and borderline males, there were 5 in that category. 3 were cleared with a repeat screen and the other 2 are pending. For the girls, the abnormal results we saw were 6. There were 6 2 had DNA that returned variants of uncertain significance, and 3 had DNA with no variants, and 1 was pending, and those are currently undergoing clinical evaluation. And for the borderline, we had 4 girls with our borderline result. 3 were cleared with repeat screen, and 1 is currently pending. Our DNA turnaround time so far in August has been about 1 to 2 weeks after the sample is reported, goes through the second LC-MS testing. We are doing 2 screens. All of our samples are getting screened for XALD, and we're a 2-screen state. So we do have 2 screens. We have 1 case that we're not quite certain what to make of right now, and it may be kind of like a one-off, in which the child was born before we started screening, so there was no first screen. The second screen was normal, and then the child was transferred to another hospital for something that you would not expect to be related to XALD, and his third screen was positive. And so we're in the midst of working that up also to try and figure out what the heck's going on with that kid as well.
Wow.
So we haven't been screening very long, but we've come up with all sorts of interesting.
Yeah, you guys are busy. Can you remind us, Dr. Friedenberg, are you doing next generation sequencing of the gene, or what's your approach? Gotcha.
Right now.
Okay, gotcha. Thank you. Any questions for Dr. Friedenberg and the Texas team?
Can you hear me? This is Mike Gelb again.
Yep.
I'm curious for the small states that are considering LC mass spec first tier for XLAD instead of doing it flow injection. I think New York is getting about 1 hit per 100 to 200 samples by flow injection they have to do on LC. What are you getting in Texas? How many hits in first tier flow injection?
So on the
reflex to LC.
Well, there were a total of, we've only been doing it for under a month right now, so we can't even really answer that. But we have had.
Well, but you're getting 1 per. It's pretty often it happens, right? So you probably have a good estimate, right?
Not right now. We're still looking at things right now, so we don't really have. I mean, we know how many we reflex to further testing. So for us, they would have had to be in abnormal or out of range in the first screen in our standard MSMS screen before they went to the LCMS-MS.
Yeah. So how frequently is that out of range in your flow injection first tier?
Well, as I said, there are a total, I think, of 17 that we've had that are out of range, and I don't know what our denominator is right now.
Oh, okay. Then
but that includes the ones that were borderline for us. So the borderlines were just repeated. They weren't necessarily sent to LCMS-MS unless they had 2 borderlines. So if we get a borderline on our first screen, we will repeat it with a new sample, and we're a 2-screen state anyway. And if the second screen is in range, then we don't reflex it anywhere. We're kind of done with that particular sample. Okay. So that's why I can't really answer. And that 17 included the borderlines. So we reflexed to DNA. The total we reflexed to DNA was 7, which would have meant that there were 7 abnormal LCMS-MSs so far.
When you reflex the DNA, are the parents involved, or are they left out of it until you have the DNA result?
No, it's part of our state screen. It's part of the algorithm.
That's good. Minimize anxiety to families. That's always good. Thank you.
Great. Thanks, Dr. Friedenberg. So Helen from Dr. Swoboda's team sent us an update from Massachusetts. So Helen, do you want to unmute yourself and talk a little bit about your report?
Hi, Amy.
Hi.
So I only have numbers for SMA. I know we also do screening for other conditions, but I just don't have the update for other conditions. But for SMA, as of August, we have screened over 80,000 babies. 2 with definitive homozygous deletion of SMN1, one with 2 copies of SMN2 who started Spinraza right away, and the other one is with 4 and more backup copy of SMN2, and the baby is currently only a couple months old and is untreated, followed by us closely for symptoms.
Thanks, Helen. Any questions for her? Okay. Are there any other states that want to give us an update? Okay. So
this is Julie from Nebraska, if you want.
Yeah, hi.
Give our numbers. Hi. Thankfully, Crystal, who decided to go visit Hurricane Dorian, but she's on her way back. But she had pulled these numbers together for me for the NPS1 and the Pompeii, and Karen, our primary follow-up person on XALD, had pulled these numbers together, so I'm just kind of strictly a reporter today. As of last Friday, we had screened 25,663 babies since July 1st of 2018 for these 3 diseases. What we have found so far with NPS1, we've had 11 with pseudodeficiency, 1 carrier, 3 that repeated normal, and then there are 2 that are still pending. Then we just received another one, so really 3 pending. But the one just received will just go to repeat first. For Pompeii, we've had 1 late onset diagnosed and 1 pseudodeficiency. For XALD, we've had 6 that repeated within normal limits. We had 1 that found no variants on sequencing. We had 5 female heterozygotes, 1 XALD male, and 2 probable female heterozygotes. Their evaluations are pending. And that's it. And we're not screening for SMA yet. And we didn't get approval to go to public hearing on our regulations.
This is Mike Gelb again. I think it's important if people state, is the DNA in Nebraska on NPS1 and et cetera, is it done before parent contact?
Yes.
Okay, good.
And it's only done after the repeat screen that is
right.
Still, yeah.
I mean, the reason I keep dwelling on this is, you know, there's a lot of false positives in newborn screening for LSDs, right? And we all know that. And the reason we do enzyme activity first, despite the fact that there's false positives, is it works better than anything else. But I think newborn screening for LSDs needs to have second tier as part of newborn screening. And I think most states are doing this or trying to do this. Ohio has this particular law where they're not allowed to do any follow-up as part of newborn screening. I hope that will change. But, I mean, if you have 40 NPS1 hits per year in your state and 39 of them are false positives, it would be really nice to do that before you contact 40 families, right? And I think that should be the goal.
Right. I should say that the exception for us is Pompeii because we don't want to wait around in case it's infant onset and there's cardiac involvement. So we do let them know so they can start and make sure they do a cardiac eval.
But
and we don't have very many.
So you contact Pompeii, the families as soon as the enzyme is low on repeat?
Yes.
Okay.
Well, we're letting the doctor know the first time it's low that they need to get a repeat, and letting them know they should think about doing cardiac eval.
But NPS1 you sequence first before you contact the doctor.
No, they get a repeat. It's only on the repeat screen that it goes to sequencing.
But before you contact the before you contact the doctor. Okay.
Yes.
Okay. Thank you.
Great. Does anybody have any questions for Julie? Okay, I will turn it back over to my colleagues from New Steps to see if they have any updates that they wanted to share with you all.
Hi, Amy. I don't think we have any.
Okay, great. Thank you. I think everybody that was at the APHL meeting heard a little bit about NBSTRN's involvement in a pilot of Duchenne muscular dystrophy. So I just wanted to give you a little bit of an update on that effort. This is an approach that consortia approach, which means we have a lot of different players that are all working together on this pilot. This isn't a pilot of something that's been nominated to the RUSP yet. It's on sort of the research side where we're trying to develop the evidence base. This is a pilot that's going to be based in New York State at 2 hospital systems, Northwell and New York Presbyterian, recruiting 100,000 newborns and then screening for Duchenne. The algorithm is to begin with CKMM isoform as the screen and then reflex to sequencing of the Duchenne or DMD gene, dystrophin gene, and then a panel of 46 other genes related to neuromuscular disorders. So we're hoping through this effort to generate some information on the clinical validity of the assay and the approach to screening, and then hopefully put together a RUSP nomination after the pilot's complete. This is a 2-year pilot, so once it gets started, we'll be screening newborns for 2 years. This effort is leveraging the NBSTRN IT infrastructure, so we'll be trying out a cloud environment once the pilot gets rolling, collecting not only the newborn screening data, but the sequencing information and data, as well as some long-term follow-up and parent survey information. So if you have any questions about the Duchenne pilot, feel free to reach out to us, and the New York State team, I'm sure will be happy to answer any questions that you might have about that effort as well. Does anybody have any questions about the Duchenne pilot? Okay, we'll keep you posted on that. So Jennifer asked when the Duchenne pilot in New York would begin, and we expect it to begin hopefully this month. So September 2019 is our target. I know that they're validating the assay and training folks, and we've got the folks at both of the hospital systems ready to go and to begin to do enrollment. So we've just got a few more boxes to check, and then we'll be getting started. So we'll give you guys an update on this pilot every month, just so you can sort of track along with us our progress. So just a reminder, if there's no other topics that you want to discuss today, this call is held the first Thursday of each month, 2 p.m. Eastern. We would love to have you call us anytime with ideas, questions, if there's a particular topic that you would like to focus on. If you remember, last month we had the folks from ClinGen, ClinVar, present on entering variants into the ClinVar database. So if you have any questions about that presentation, we have the presentation. I think we shared it through the listserv, but if you have any questions on that, or if you have any other special topics that you would like us to address, we're happy to organize that. So is there any other topic? I know we've got 10 minutes left that anybody wants to bring up.
This is Mike Gelb again. I would really like to hear if there's any data beyond Kentucky for the use of the creatine for second-tier biochemical analysis of Pompe assay. I know California tried it, and it'd be nice to hear if anybody else has tried this creatine method.
Who would that be, Dr. Gelb? Like Dr. Ronaldo or Dr.
So those guys, Matern and Ronaldo have published the creatine ratio as a add-on to GAA enzyme activity to reduce the false positives. They maintain that it works pretty well. I off the record, I heard from California they were not satisfied. I'd like to get an update maybe from them about why they're not using it anymore, and if any other states are doing it, I'd sure like to hear, because we have a big problem with Pompe, right? The genotypes are you know, sometimes inconclusive, and we have, you know, for MPS 1 we have gag analysis. For Pompe we really don't have anything except molecular and maybe creatine. So I'd like to hear more about that, but maybe nobody's doing it except Mayo. Yeah.
Hey Mike, can you hear me? It's Joe.
Yeah, Joe.
Yeah, we have validated or have gone through the steps to validate the creatinine, or however you pronounce it, method. And the numbers actually look pretty similar to Mayo, with what we got as far as you know, being able to split between pseudos and carriers. But once you know, there isn't a huge, you know, there is some overlap, so we've got a little ways to go before we'll actually use it.
Okay.
You know, and eliminate going to DNA, because we want to kind of see how it works out for a bit. But we should be going to start that within a month.
Yeah, that's good. It might be that you're the only one doing it, looking at it. I guess I'd like to hear more from California, but I can bug them. I don't know if this is the right format for that, but yeah. Okay.
Michigan just typed in that they're sending MML for Pompe second tier.
They're sending what?
Is that what you meant to type, Joan? MML? Michigan is sending MML for Pompe second tier. I'm not sure if that's what she meant.
Yes, Mayo, she sent.
Oh, Mayo.
So,
gotcha. Thanks, Cindy.
Dr. Ronaldo's also on. I saw him on the chat box. I think he needs to be unmuted so he can comment.
Oh, yeah. Go ahead, Piero. You can unmute yourself by doing *6.
Okay. Can you hear me now?
Yeah.
Okay. I actually want to make a comment because I saw in your slides about Duchenne that you also have sort of clear listed there. So I was curious to see what was the plan of how to use it, because again, I've not been involved in any conversation. I'm glad to see it there. I think it could have a role, but I'm not sure how it would be used. In terms of Pompe, the second tier test, now we have a lot of experience, and perhaps you could ask Dr. Tortorelli, who is really leading that effort, to share our experience. We receive samples from many different programs. Don't know exactly on top of my head, but it's more than Michigan and Minnesota. Again, the one thing that you might want to ask Sylvia is to show that now where we can identify the cases that later have been ruled to be late onset versus early onset, we can actually make a tooling clear that seems to be able to predict based on the results of the first tier screening and the second tier test. And finally, I have no information how California is using the creatine-creatinine ratio. Remember, it's not just creatine and creatinine, but it's the ratio creatine-creatinine divided by the glucosidase activity. If we're using it, we are certainly not using it in clear, and the way this is supposed to be used is a basically integrated tool to make a differential diagnosis between Pompe and pseudodeficiency or carrier. So again, like Dr. Gelb, I would be curious to know if indeed they're using it. I would like to know how they're using it, because again, they have not asked for assistance from us in any way.
Can you hear me? This is Mike again. I totally agree. I just mentioned it quickly because I think it should be discussed. But I think it would be great if Sylvia and the Mayo group present an update on creatine-creatinine ratio divided by GAA in clear one of these calls. You know, they have a lot more data since the publication. I think it would be great to hear that.
Yeah, we can definitely ask. Thank you.
And Amy, what about Duchenne?
I don't know. I think Clear was part of the original plan. And so New York State might be still working on their algorithm. And I think they were hoping to use Clear, just for part of the validation.
Because if you go down 2 slides, that's the one I'm referring to.
This one?
Yeah. No, the one after.
Yes. Clear is in every picture I show just because we want everybody to use it. So if New York State uses Clear for the Duchenne, we'll try to harvest the information from New York State. So I'm not sure if they're going to use you or use Clear for the pilot, but I'm sure they'll be in touch. But this is just, I could replace this with any other condition. And when we think about pilots, we always think about using Clear for the analytical validation of new technologies.
Okay, and maybe this is not the right place, but can you give us an update about Mike? I saw the announcement, and it looks like he's stepping down in October. Will he remain involved, or is basically going off to different things?
Yeah, so our new CEO for ACMG was announced this week, Dr. Monkey. He begins in October. Dr. Watson, we have him at ACMG until the end of December, and we definitely hope that he'll stay involved with everything related to newborn screening. We're not going to let him get away too quickly.
Okay, but he's a PI of NBSTRN grant, correct? Is that going to change?
I don't know, but he is the current PI of NBSTRN. You're right.
Okay, that's really why I was asking the question.
Yeah, gotcha. Okay. Any other questions that you guys want to cover today? If not, I'll give you 2 minutes back to your lives.
Has anybody heard anything update on there was a stay on the use of de-identified newborn blood spots for pilot studies, and now it's back to the point where we can do that without parent consent. As long as, is there any update on that, or is that still, we're allowed to do that now?
On the common room, yeah, you are allowed to do that now. So there has been a change to the.
So it went, yeah.
Yeah.
It was like a year we couldn't, and now it's back to the old way we can. And is that in jeopardy now, or is it, as far as you know, it's okay?
As far as I know, it's okay. We're waiting for the Newborn Screening Saves Lives Act to get passed through the Senate. But
okay.
So far, there's no language in there that would impact the dry blood spots.
Yeah,
Okay.
this is Stan, and it's our biobank. We're just assuming everything's okay because it seems that that piece has been approved.
Yeah.
So
Yeah, but
Dean, Dean Sir with MLD Foundation and
yeah,
the Newborn Screening Saves Lives reauthorization, when it went through last time 5 years ago, did have some Senate amendments that that impacted the access and use of spots, and we're on guard that those amendments might be thrown onto the bill again. We'll know over the next few weeks as the budget's passed.
Yeah, I think you need to watch for that, Dean, because that outfit in Minnesota is aggressively trying, right? So, yeah.
Yeah, it's Kentucky Senator as well, so we're working on it.
Yeah, that part. Yeah. Okay.
Okay. Well, thanks, Dean. Maybe, Dean, on an upcoming call, we can have you give us all an update on what you guys are doing related to that. That might be really helpful.
I'd be happy to do that, but hopefully it's passed by the time we speak next.
Yeah, hopefully. Okay. Well, thanks, everybody, for a great call. If you have any questions or anything that you want to follow up on from today, just feel free to reach out to us, and have a great rest of your day.